Teachers of Reddit, what amusing family secrets did you accidentally learn from your overly talkative students? I used to do science programming for kids. In the middle of a library summer reading program, I picked a little girl, probably about 4 to 5 years old, to come up and be my volunteer for a magic trick, which then you explained the science of after it was done. I asked what her name was, she said it into the mic, zero shyness in front of approximately 200 kids and adults. I asked if she had ever heard of the trick we were going to do and she said, nope. My favorite dinosaur is a triceratops. And I like your shoes. My dad is back there. Hi Dad, but my mom couldn't come tonight because she got a shot in her butt and can't sit on the hard chairs this place has. Dad, and all the other adults in the audience, were dying. Here's a cute and lighthearted one. I had a girl stay for some help after school one day. At the time I was teaching geometry, 10th grade, in a mostly Hispanic school. She told me about growing up in Peru until about the age of 10 or so. I can't remember the exact age she told me. She was telling me that she worked with her uncle sometimes on the weekend. I asked what kind of work. Many of our kids worked construction with their families. He's a clown, I'm his DJ. That really gave me a smile. An 11th grader was talking about how he moved back with his grandparents when his mom dies. He mentioned that his mom also attended this school and so did his dad, but he never met him. He only knew his dad's first name. So he says the name in my get to know other students first day icebreaker. A freshman girl asked a few pointed questions, pulls at her phone and calls their dad. Dad is there within 15 minutes. Turns out the dead mom's family moved mom out of the city to hide the pregnancy and the dad only knew the child's first name. Dad spent years trying unsuccessfully to track his kid down. The dad settled down, becomes a EMT, gets married, has 3 daughters. The oldest daughter was the freshman. There was a GD family reunion in my icebreaker on the first day of school. Several years ago, I did a brief stint teaching junior high. I now teach high school. In that time, I learned a lot of information from students that, I am sure, parents would prefer I had not learned. The one that stands out the most to me was the boy who accidentally let it slip to the entire class that dad has a small penis. The bell hadn't rung to start class yet, so I was letting the kids, 7th grade, be a little crazy and get some of their pent-up energy out before we began class. I hear one boy say to another, "Shut up, you'll always have a tiny dick." The kid, in a moment of suicide by words, just said, "I've seen my dad naked. He's tiny." You're probably right. Thank God the bell rang and I was able to move the kids on to their actual lessons. Okay, so not a teacher, but in grade 9 there was a girl who got completely plastered in the girls' bathroom. And my 14-year-old self had one too many slushies at lunch, so I ran into her there. This girl's makeup was a complete mess, and since I was at the peak of social anxiety problems I just tried to slip away. As usual I was too late and this girl clung to my arm and fell apart sobbing to me about how her boyfriend had gotten her mother pregnant. I ended up missing the rest of the day to sit in the corner of the bathroom with this girl I had never met before in my life, and we never talked again. But man, I feel bad for that dysfunction family. While I taught 4th grade, I had a kid tell me that his dad works on car rims at night. Another one told my friend, the bilingual teacher, that she came back from visiting family in Mexico over the weekend by going through the river. Edited to add, another one. I taught the son of a 2nd grade teacher. He came in one weekend talking about drinking lots of kid beer over the weekend at his dad's house. His mom stopped by later and I mentioned the story. She shook her head and said, "It's apple juice. I keep telling his dad to stop calling it kid beer." Thanks for the awards. These are my very first ones. Things have been pretty depressing recently, so here's a funny one. A kid in one of my classes told me that they learned that Santa isn't real, and in fact, it's actually their parents eating the milk and cookies. But, as they said, it's not right, they have to make the milk and cookies and eat it. They cooked for me and I eat it. So I learned how to make cookies and pour milk now. So wholesome. They told me they have a younger sibling, and they're going to keep making milk and cookies for Santa until their sibling gets older and they'll teach them how to do it too. I wasn't a teacher, but I used to have a small farm with the usual farm animals. I also went to schools and brought along animals and educated the class on animal care, etc. I always invited elementary school classes to come take a tour of the farm and entertain the children. Every year the teachers took me up on the offer. At the time I also had several animals up in the house, including a few squirrel monkeys. One of them was really old and she had no teeth. A young boy in the 2nd grade was laughing and playing with that older monkey while I talked to the class that surrounded the monkey cages. The old monkey was gumming his finger and he couldn't stop laughing. Finally the little boy said, "Hey Jacob, Come here and let her bite you, it feels just like grandma. And while showing them the possum I was bottle feeding back to health, a little boy said he had a bunch of them in his bedroom closet. So, my wife isn't a teacher, but she works at a theme park in Central Florida, yes, the one that probably immediately came to mind, doing fantasy princess makeovers for little girls. Part of her job is to make small talk with the girls as she works on their transformations, and one of her stock questions is, "So, princess, do you have any pets?" One little girl answered, matter-of-factly, "Oh, yes. We have a pony." "Oh, how nice. What color is your pony?" "I don't know. I've never seen it. But Daddy says Mommy can ride it anytime she wants to." I teach preschool. One day my kids were pretending to have a restaurant, and were writing, aka scribbling, each other's orders. One older kid was actually learning to write and would ask me how to spell food items. He came up to me and said, "How do you spell whiskey?" I asked why he wanted to spell that. "That's my dad's favorite drink," he told me. I told his mom cause I thought it was funny, but unfortunately this fact was related to why her and dad weren't together anymore. I had a little girl tell me every day for like a month that her mommy had a baby in her tummy. I knew that her mom didn't want more kids for the time being, so we laughed about it all the time. One day, Mom comes to pick up and I'm like, "Oh man, your daughter was talking about the new baby again." Mom tells me that she actually took a test the day before and it was positive. I have a kindergartner whose dad died about a year ago. She doesn't quite understand where he went, so sometimes when other kids bring up their dad she talks about him. A couple times she said she misses him and says he's on a trip. Sometimes she says he's coming home tomorrow. I only met her mom once, so I don't know the situation, but I don't blame her for not knowing how to explain death to a 5-year-old. Sorry, I know that's sad, but I work in a low-income area. I have lots of sad stories. I was discussing homophones with third graders and we were considering the words fair/fair, what they mean and how they're spelled. I was sure we had exhausted all the meanings, fair weather, playing fair, bus or taxi fare, etc. I thought we had it covered, but no, Heather knew one more. You know, fair? When your mom has a affair and your dad finds out and gets really mad about it. I'm not often speechless, but that left me floundering for a moment. Sadly, those parents were divorced before the end of the school year. During virtual learning, at a time of day where we would just give the kids a little time to talk to each other after lunch, one boy was telling another boy how his dad had hooked up his iPad to the TV so he could watch videos or something like that. These kids are kindergarteners. He goes to the other boy, "Has your dad ever done that?" To which the second boy replies, spilling all the tea, "No. My dad definitely can't do that. My dad never comes to pick me up. He never even watches me." Now obviously this was terrible and such a heartbreaking thing to hear, but what was so amusing was just his innocence and candidness as a 5-year-old kid. He just came right out and said it, like, "No, my dad's a piece of shit, man." He just aired it all out. And again, this was virtual learning, so this kid's poor mother is in the background yelling, "Jay, stop it. Don't say that." She was horrified. It was sad to hear, but also so funny to hear him just be so straight up with it in front of a class of 25 kids and 2 teachers. More discomforting than amusing, but third grader is jokingly rhyming words with muck to describe the weather outside. Outside is mucky, it's yucky, it's ducky, it's fucky. Immediate reaction, claps her hand over her mouth and looks embarrassed. Definitely an accident, no penalty. But then outside the kids start discussing which curse words they know. Roy said the F word. Well, I know the B word. Yeah, I know the B word. What about the C word? There's no C word. Yeah, crap. Crap's not a C word, etc. A conversation everyone can remember having as a kid. And then our very loud, very talkative, moderately oversharing kid jumps in. "Did you know there's an N word? My mom, a judge, says it at home all the time. Even my little brother knows it, and that's how I know it's a bad word, even though she says it cause he said it once at the grocery store and we got yelled at by a lady. And then of course they ask her what the N word is, and that's when we jump in." I don't think I would call it cute. Just mature. I am a bus driver and he started riding my bus in January. She noticed I was knitting a glove on my dashboard and asked who it was for. I told her it was for my daughter, Lucy. She asked if Lucy has any brothers or sisters. I told her that Lucy was going to have a little brother, but he didn't make it. He went on to tell me, that happened to my mom too. It was really hard on her. That was maybe the most mature conversation I've had with anyone in 2021. I came to find out later that he is 9 years old. She went on to tell me how mac and cheese is her favorite food. Not a teacher but the parent. My child in 2nd or 3rd grade told one of her friends that she saw mommy and daddy lick their private areas, then she went outside to the neighbors and saw the neighbor killing his wife. Friend went to the teacher and daughter explained it all again. For the record, she's never seen us do that. We always lock the door for fun times, and I'm fairly certain our neighbor didn't kill his wife, but now that I think about it, our neighbor's wife did vanish. Needless to say, we got a phone call for that one. And I'm pretty sure we are on a list. I have a few but one that sticks out the most goes as follows. One day while teaching multi-step equations to 7th graders, a girl asked to speak to me outside. She had these huge brown eyes that were brimmed with tears. I walked outside and she just started spilling her guts. She began telling me that her mother was an illegal resident. Her older sister's drug problem was jeopardizing her mother's security as she was worried about her sister being arrested, etc. In addition to all this, her sister would threaten her mom if she didn't give her money for drugs. There was a myriad of family drama she kept running through. After a few minutes, she looked at me and said, "Ms., my last name, do you want to hear the worst part of it all? I'm still in love with Tristan. And you sat me next to him in our new seating chart and I can't sit that close to someone I'm in love with when I know he hates me now." Yes, I moved her seat away from Tristan. That was a few years ago and I am still in close contact with her. She and Tristan did fall out of love. They have luckily both been able to find others. Special education teacher here. I had a student who was an absolute terror. He bullied the other students and constantly disrupted lessons. His mother was just as bad. She would routinely stop by to visit my classroom and would sit there and give me the stank eye. Then she would go to the principal with made-up stories of my inability to teach and or my bias against her son. She would call meetings with district-level administrators and rail against me for hours. One day I was asking my students if they could write down their address for a class project we were doing. The terror gives me an address that is different from the one we had on record. In fact, the address was in the next town 15 miles away. He and his mother had moved 9 months earlier, but had neglected to register in their new school district, as is required. I notified my principal and the next day the terror is gone. The icing on the cake was that terror mom was sued by our school district for the loss of funds during that 9-month period. Not a teacher, but my younger sister wrote in her English class journal in like 2nd or 3rd grade something that indicated that she might be getting hit/abused at home. My parents got a call about it eventually. Then the entire family joked about how they'd have to be careful with her or she was going to get them arrested. The thing was, 5 got hit at home. Not on a regular basis, but my dad definitely hit me as a form of discipline. The last time was in 6th grade for lying to him about signing up for the annual math contest when I hadn't. In my teens he didn't have to hit me, he had this voice he would use to call my name and that would be enough for me to shrink into myself. Ironically my sis never got hit cause she always came off delicate and seeing what happened to me was enough to scare her. It's not like I was a bad kid either. Straight A's and pretty amiable. Only downside was being opinionated. I think a number of my elementary school teachers knew my dad was harsh with me. They never straight up asked cause I was generally a happy person, but I did have pretty noticeable lows in my preteens. I'm sure no one is surprised at the fact that my sister and I no longer talk to our father. Not a teacher, but when I was in 5th grade there was another girl that shared my name and we became good friends. I started noticing these bruises on her almost every week with it being bad after exams. When I asked her about this she would change the subject. I subtly hinted at this to my teacher. I didn't know what abuse was back then. I just thought she was unwell and worried about her. My teacher soon learned that her parents would hit her, a 5th grader, for scoring less marks. This girl was academically gifted and would score only 1 or 2 marks less than the total and she would still be hit. Asian parents are whack, man. What happened after that? My mom did offer to talk to her after I told her about this, but I don't remember why we didn't go through with it. Anyways, she moved classes in 6th grade so I have no idea what happened to her. If this classifies as abuse or just overbearing parents, but either way I hope she is better now.